Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. Let's talk more about the takeover that never happened. Still may happen, but it didn't happen today. I want to point out before we start the next interview that, again, we are taping this on the day the takeover was supposed to happen. So a lot of things could happen after that. Assemblyman, thank you for being here. This is Assemblyman Chris Brown, who represents Atlantic County and thus Atlantic City. It's been a crazy week.
Sure has.
It was supposed to be a takeover. It didn't happen. You have the governor calling the mayor a liar. You have the mayor saying he felt like he was set up. Who's right?
Well, you know what's unfortunate is when politics takes over policy. Right now what you have is two different versions of a takeover bill. And if we have different sides who can't agree, calling names, holding press conferences. We have a lot of working families here in Atlantic County who count on us to get it right. And so I made the offer the other day, no more press conferences, no more name calling. Let's all get in a room. I offered in my conference room in Atlantic City where I have my business. I'll provide the White House subs. If they can't even talk to each other, I'll pay for the mediator. But the bottom line is this. We need to solve problems, not continue to bicker with one another.
Let's explain all of what you just said for 1 minute and jump in anytime you want. The two bills, there's one in the Assembly with Prieto, and there's one in the Senate, and that is with Sweeney, and the governor is backing that one. Is that correct? And the biggest difference between the two bills is collective bargaining. Is that fair?
Well, no, there's several differences between the two bills. For example, under the Sweeney bill, they want to enter a pilot program which sets the taxes for the casinos. When this was initially brought up, it was my position that instead of creating a convoluted tax system, why don't we just assess them properly? Of course, common sense gets you so far, and they came up with a convoluted pilot provision. Now, when you looked at the pilot, and I said, why don't we tax them fairly and just assess them properly? They said, no. We have to stop the costly tax appeals. The bill that passed the Senate allows costly tax appeals. It gives an opt-out provision for the casinos. So how do you have a pilot plan designed to stabilize taxes when you say to the casinos, you can take the sweetheart pilot deal, but if you don't like that, you can file costly tax appeals. So that's an issue that's near and dear to me because that affects the property tax rate for the people who live in my district. And one of the biggest problems that families have is paying their property taxes. The cost of living in New Jersey is simply too high.
Can I take from that you are backing Speaker Prieto's bill?
Yes, Speaker Prieto took out of the pilot the opt-out provision for the casinos. In addition, I had been lobbying for, and we had it put in at one point, 13.5% of the taxes raised from the pilot go to the county. That's $4 million for Egg Harbor Township, Hamilton Township, Northfield, Summers Point, all the other municipalities, because it's been my opinion from the beginning that the other municipalities shouldn't bear the cost of bailing out the poor government that's gone on for so long in Atlantic City.
But that bill doesn't have a chance, right? I mean, it could pass the Assembly, but the governor says he's not going to sign it, and he'd rather see Atlantic City go bankrupt. He said he'd rather see it go over a cliff like Thelma and Louise.
I'm hopeful that sound bites and rhetoric and bully tactics ultimately don't prevail, and that working together we put everybody in a room. And my concern isn't rhetoric that comes out of another person. My concern is doing what's right. My concern is making sure that we pass the best deal for the people who live here in Atlantic County.
Let's wrap it up with one question. Is Atlantic City going to go bankrupt?
If we work together in the legislature and the governor cooperates and we all sit down in a room, no, absolutely not. And it's my goal to make sure that we do everything we can to avoid bankruptcy. And the only reason is this. All experts have told us to include the independent auditor that came down, that it will do more harm to the city in the long run to go into bankruptcy than it would to come up with a plan to fix it. But the reality is, if we can't right size the budget in Atlantic City so that the amount of taxes that are raised is what meets the budget, then we may have no option.
Thank you, sir. Assemblyman Chris Brown, I really appreciate it. When we come back, we'll talk about some good news for Atlantic City and Stockton University and their brand new, beautiful branch that's scheduled to open soon when Jersey Matters continues.